Hello everyone, I am Dr. Sushruth, Managing Partner, Mediclains NLP. I work as one business development head, taking care of entire activities at Mediclains LLP. So today we will discuss about one of the important aspect that is called as the minimum requirement of a height in operation theatres and ICUs. So this is one basic doubt even doctors as well as architects have. So what is the bare minimum height that is required for OTs and ICUs? So now the height what you are expecting is in terms of the civil height, and also the height that you are expecting after the civil, that is at the fall ceiling level, finished floor level to the fall ceiling level. Now what is important in this aspect is, let us understand how do you define the height, as far as the civil structure is concerned, a bare civil structure is concerned. Now this is the slab. Now this is the floor. Now this is the height between slab and the floor. Okay. Now there will be a beam, which is a conventional structure. Now this is the height between unfinished floor, or you can say finished floor. Now from here, bottom of the beam, what is the height? Now why height is important for us? The height that we require for these kind of facilities, mainly for running the services above fall ceiling. Now again one more doubt arises. Can I fix my operation theatre light and pendant if I have a fall ceiling height at around 8 feet 5 inches? Or do I have to have 9 feet or a 10 feet height only as far as fixing the fixing the OT lights and pendants in the operation theatres? No, it is not so. Irrespective of the fall ceiling height, you can fix your operation theatre light as well as pendant. Now for that, we will talk about that a little later. Let us understand why height is important as far as above fall ceiling is concerned. Now this is a conventional structure. Now why height is important? Height is important to run the services above fall ceiling, provided if you are following clean room concepts. Do not bother about the height of a slab from the finished floor level if you are operating your operation theatres and an ICU with a split AC, which are total deviation from the regular standards. Now if you are operating with a split AC and you don't require even the fall ceiling, and it's a clean and environment out there, so even if you have around 9 feet of fall ceiling height also, it's okay, no problem. But that's a deviation from the regular standards. But if you are looking for clean air inside your operation theatres and an ICU, then you require particular height that is required only to run your services, especially the ducting. Now when you want to achieve the clean room inside your operation theatres, there are guidelines given by ISO 146441. I just write down the guidelines, you can Google it. ISO 146441. Now this defines a classification into ISO 1, ISO 5, ISO 5, not 1, ISO 5, ISO 6, ISO 7, ISO 8, ISO 9. Now let us see ISO 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Now, more the ISO certification or parameters that you follow, less is the stringency. Less is the stringency. That means the more towards you go towards ISO 9, your I would say the classification gets deteriorated. So if you have ISO 5, that means your environment is highly maintained. more stringent protocols that you are going to follow in your ISO 5. Same way, ISO 9, less stringent. So now, as far as operation theatres and ICU is concerned, I believe personally that at least in your operation theatres and ICU at the table level, I'll explain what is the table level and what is the filter level. At least for the table level, you have to achieve ISO 7. Now, to design ISO 7, to have a validation report at table level, ISO 7, you have to design at the static load, you have to design at least minimum ISO 6. So when you design as per ISO 6, then there are more chances that you will definitely achieve ISO 7 at the table level, at the peripheral level. So to do that, there are proper calculations as far as air changes per hour is concerned. Subject is little deep, so we will cover it up as and when we take up those detailings. Now let us understand. Now we are at ISO 7. Now ISO 7, what is table level, what is peripheral level? So to have a proper height to run my ducting, that totally depends on what client is expecting. If client is expecting I just want ISO 9, then we can manage with whatever height that you have. If client is expecting I want to have split AC in my operation theatres and ICU, we will adjust whatever the height that is possible. So now let us understand what is a table level, what is at the peripheral level. Now this is your false ceiling. Now this is your floor. Now you are operating patient from this area, from the floor somewhere around 2 feet 9 inches, adjustable OT lights, OT tables. Now imagine at this juncture, at this area, if you do not have a proper particle control, then what's the point in having the laminar flow? The air is coming from here. So now we'll talk about this. This is a filtration level. Now air coming from the HEPA module, again taken back from these risers, go back to the system again. Okay. Now this is the OT table. Now when you do not have a proper air management, or when you do not have a proper particle count at the table level, then there is no point in doing this entire clean room activity. So I personally believe that you should have a good validation results at least at the table level. Here if I keep my particle counter, I should achieve ISO 7. And also if I keep my particle counter at the riser level, I should achieve ISO 7. Then I can define myself that this operation theatre or an ICU complying with ISO 7 classification. A proper validation has to be done with that. So proper validation has to be done before we conclude that this operation theatre comply with ISO 7 guidelines. Minimum achieve ISO 7 in the operation theatres and ICU. Now, when I have to design all these aspects, height plays very important role for me because this is the false ceiling. Okay. Now this is the slab, a civil structure slab. Now whatever I have to run, the ducting that whatever I have to run between the false ceiling and the ceiling. Now within this area I have to run my all ducting. Imagine I require somewhere, this is the space, this is the peripheral beam. Every building will have a peripheral beams running around. Now if I have to run my ducting and then supply to this particular area here, this is the plenum box. Now this is flush toward this. Now when I have to run my ducting here, I have to have a certain space because this is the predefined one. At least minimum 8 feet 5 inches is what I am expecting as a false ceiling height from finished floor. Now if I have to have a proper designing and achieve ISO 7, if I do not have a proper height between the beam and the false ceiling, beam and the floor, then my ducting or other services will not come from here. So again, in that what we can do is we can divide the entire duct outside itself and bring it inside. So these are the alterations that we have to do. But when you are constructing a new hospital, when you are about to do a casting work, then it is better to have a proper consultation from the expertise and then define your proper height, so that at later stage we will not end up in doing some adjustments. Now this is regarding the importance of the height. Now also it depends on what client is expecting. Now just having SS wall and SS ceiling, flooring vinyl, one door doesn't fits into a criteria of a proper operation theatre. So for a proper operation theatre, you have to have a proper air. So now this is the reason height plays very important role. Now let's come to what is the minimum height that I expect in my projects. If you are going with PT slab, the beamless slab, preload tension slabs is what PT slab is called. So those PT slab doesn't have a beam. So when they do not have a beam, then whatever ceiling height I have, that is going to be a final height for me, where I can bring my ducting inside and then give you an entire air delivery system here. But even though you do not have a proper PT slab, you have a conventional structure, then what you can do is, at the time of construction itself, if you ask us, then what we will suggest you is, it is better to have a inverted beam here, provided you don't have any other rooms at the top. Then here also I can get in my ducting. So now height plays very important role here. So what is the minimum height that I expect? At least I need to have 11 feet as a clear space. Now 1.5 or 18 inches goes to a slab. Now somewhere around 12 feet. So this is a minimum height that I expect, so that I can give you and deliver you a better project and better air management, and patient outcome will be good, and you will have a proper validation report also. Now this is what I need. And in some projects, client do ask me and tell me that I have 11 feet already. They say that I have 11 feet height. But when I go and check, they'll be measuring from unfinished floor to the slab. This is not important for us. We need beam bottom, because all the service is going to enter from there. So you end up in having around somewhere 10 feet or 9 feet 8 inches, which is not sufficient for us, and you will not achieve proper classifications. So it all depends on what client is looking at and how he accepts the new things and new learning. So we understand that height plays very important role. There are other parameters to explain as far as clean room is concerned. We will take up one by one because video will be lengthy. Thank you very much.